They expected UFC Vegas 91 to be so bad that they didn't even have it on the ESPN Plus app. You had to watch it on ESPN News. That's like 11 channels deep in the ESPN portfolio, but shame on them because ESPN Vegas 91 was actually a pretty good card. Was it the best fight night of the year? Of course not. But was it better than expected? Absolutely. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to recap the entire UFC Vegas 91 fight card, giving you my thoughts and reactions. But before I do, let's talk about the bets. The bets went really well. Everything that I put on the board was pretty solid. Obviously, we missed a couple of bets. The Michal Figlak bet, that missed. Frankly, I think he won that fight, and we will talk about that in a little bit. And then the Jhonata Denise James Llontop parlay, that missed as well. That was a risky parlay. Anytime you have some UFC debuts and you slap them together, you're kind of asking for it. But other than that, the bets did pretty well. Jacob's underdog lock of the week and David Onama hit. We had the best DraftKings ownership projections on planet Earth yet again, and the premium member safety parlay also hit, and not to mention the prize picks. I'm on like 7 events in a row of absolutely crushing prize picks. I had the Jhonata Denise over 16.5 significant strikes. Karine Silva more than a half a takedown. That line was an absolute gift. And then Michal Figlak less than 1.5 takedowns. I don't know why they thought he was going to become a wrestler, because of course that was not going to happen. If you do want to unlock my premium member safety parlay and all the picks and the bets and everything for UFC 301, those are already up on the website this minute. Just go to WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member. You can unlock all of it. Check it all out instantly for UFC 301. Here's a closer look at that DraftKings ownership projections. If you do DraftKings Fantasy, you know how important these numbers are. We had a 2.33% margin of error, which was by far the best in the industry. You can see we compare ourselves to the 6 other leaders. I call them leaders, but frankly, we are the leader in this space. But Awesemo, Roto Grinders, they're all in here, and they're not even close. This is part of that premium package. WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member. It's $10. You're going to get every single thing we ever do in one single low price package. Let's talk about the actual fights. I watched all the fights. It wasn't easy to do because you can see with the no hat and the fancy shirt, I had a date night with the wife. But now I'm here filming this for you at 11 o'clock at night. We had Maheshate taking on Gabriel Benítez in the opener. And it was an interesting fight, and there was very interesting commentary that set the tone for a couple of fights later in the night. So why the fight was interesting is because neither one of these guys looked good. It was a striking-only matchup, which on paper is fun, and to the eyes, this was a fun fight to watch. It was a nice card opener to get us back into the swing of things after a week off, but it was not a high-level fight. These didn't look like 2 fighters that should be in the largest MMA promotion on the planet, 2 of the most elite fighters in the world. This did not look like that, but it was fun. They gave Maheshate the decision. This was one of several insanely close decisions on this card, and they gave it to him because, in my mind, he was winning the ends of the rounds. The last 30 seconds, the last 40 seconds, he'd come forward, he would land big, he threw a flying knee to end a round, and he was just putting that final stamp. Other than that, they were pretty back and forth, pretty even inside the rounds. We had some solid leg kicks from Gabriel Benítez. He has abandoned those in the last few years, but he wasn't throwing in combinations. So Maheshate basically won this fight because he was a little younger, a touch, like a sliver faster, and more willing to move forward. He had no problem taking some damage, marching forward, and that ultimately got him the win. The commentary piece that I mentioned is we heard from Dominic Cruz in this fight and several other fights where he said there wasn't much grappling in this fight, so the judges should get it right. Basically implying that when there's takedowns, these judges don't know what the hell to do. They don't know if it counts, if it doesn't count, if it matters, it doesn't matter. And there is a fight on this card where I completely agree with that sentiment. The judges, I think, got it wrong, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. But in this fight, I'm perfectly fine in either direction. If they gave it to Gabriel, fine. Leg kicks were fine. He was a little busy. If they gave it to Maheshate, fine. He was moving forward. He had the damage. He took a little bit of a beating, in the face because he would get jabbed up a little bit. Fine. I'm fine either direction with this fight. Then we had Liang Na. And how about Liang Na, thank you? I thought that up. I got this picture. I put it on the slide. I did the caption. I said, you know what? Liang, no thank you. That's funny, right? Is it because, I have no hat? I like a dad joke because I'm looking like a dad right now? I don't know, but I thought that was actually pretty clever. And the problem with Liang Na is she can win every fight for a couple of minutes. And then that's it. And then no longer can win after that. She just can't. She comes forward, all gas, no brakes, has success because people wilt under that pressure. She can take people down because she's a high-level wrestler. And then she folds a little bit. What I will say, there were improvements. And none of this matters because I am 1,000% sure she will be cut and will no longer be in the UFC. But I am impressed with some of the improvements she made on her feet. She won some of those striking exchanges. She came forward, she threw bombs, she backed Petrovic up, and Petrovic struggled a little bit with that pressure. So, a couple of takeaways here. One, Liang Na's gone. She's not here any longer. She is not going to be in the UFC for any meaningful amount of time. Like, she's done. 0 for 4, finished all 4 times. She's done. Goodbye. That is what it is. So no point wasting a bunch of time talking about her. Ivana Petrovic, yes, she got the win. And good for her. She won the fight. But I didn't leave this fight thinking she was good. The commentators were like, she did such a good job weathering this storm, and she really just wore out Liang. She took Liang Na to a 3rd round. The statistic they gave is she hasn't been to a 3rd round in like 8 years. And they went to a 3rd round. Ivana Petrovic did not look good. She was out grappled early. She was out wrestled early. She won a few scrambles, and that's where she had some success. And then Liang, as we all know it, we had seen 3 times previously, folds. So my takeaway from this is let's hope Ivana Petrovic gets pumped a little too much. Let's hope she's a favorite in her next fight and we can fade her a little bit, because if Liang Na had touched more gas, a little bit more tenacity, not as much quit in her, she could have stolen this fight. She was winning that 1st round. She came forward, got some takedowns, stayed in Ivana's face. Ivana won this fight because Liang Na lost it. So I think we should all be very careful what Ivana's next matchup is and bet accordingly. Then we had a spectacular debut by Chris Padilla. He took on James Llontop on short notice. He stepped up on short notice just a couple of days ago. And it was an interesting fight because James Llontop is a very good striker, and Chris Padilla was sort of good everywhere, great nowhere, right? That was the narrative coming into this fight. And I actually think that that is still the narrative. James Llontop looked very good in the striking. Lit him up with some leg kicks. Chris wasn't defending any of them. Llontop was composed. He looked good. He got taken down, popped right back up. Defended a few takedowns, no problem. But Chris Padilla did what he was supposed to do. He put the pressure on. He came forward. He had 3 takedowns, and they were lightning fast. That dude lowered his level and got in there so fast. Lightning fast entries. And that's ultimately what won him this fight. Lightning fast entry to a takedown, and then as Llontop was working his way up, Chris Padilla just snatched it up. Just snatched up that submission, spun behind, boom, got him. So great job for Chris Padilla. UFC debut on short notice. They did the whole story. He thought he was going to be home, all these things. And he won that fight. And congratulations for him. Undeniable, won that fight. But I don't think James Llontop loses a bunch of stock. Because, yes, he did get caught in a scramble after being taken down. But when he was striking, you could tell he was clean. He was accurate. You can tell he knew what he was doing and he was composed. So I think both of these gentlemen leave this octagon with a little bit better than they went in. James Llontop made a mistake, got caught, UFC debut. It is what it is. Chris Padilla showed up, short notice, UFC debut, won himself some stock, made himself a couple of bucks. So I'm happy to watch both of these guys again, and I'm happy to bet on either one of them in their next matchup, depending on what we have here. Because Llontop's takedown defense looked very good. And even though he was taken down, you don't get taken down 3 times that quickly without having a good get-up game. He pops right back up. So I was impressed with both of these guys, how they handled themselves. Congratulations to Christopher Padilla. And then this was an interesting fight, except not that interesting. One of the favorite underdogs on this card was Marnic Mann. There was so many people in the comment section, on the Twitter, on the X, talking about Marnic Mann's my lock of the week. Marnic Mann's my favorite underdog. And I get it. I understood it from the standpoint of she is tough as shit. Insanely tough, constantly surviving, constantly there. And I'm not saying constantly moving forward. I'm not saying constantly doing something, because that wasn't the case at all. She was basically a punching bag, but she was there the whole time. And right when you were about to be like, they're going to stop this fight, she did something. She grabbed the head. She threw a strike back. She moved just enough to not get stopped. And it was scary because I had the over 2.5 on this fight in the safety parlay. And we were at the 2 minute, like we were right there. We were 30 seconds away from that hitting, and Marnic Mann was against the cage, and Ketlen Souza was just lighting her up. And the referee, he wanted to stop it so bad. And then Marnic Mann grabbed the head and squeezed her and like closed the distance. And she was just there. She was there. She was moving. She didn't quit. She didn't give up. And that's all I needed from her. And that's what we got. But Marnic Mann's not a good fighter. She's not skilled. And it's a shame because she is so insanely tough. Let's go back to UFC 300. Remember that quitter? Jalen Turner, the quitter. Remember he turned his head, he quit? Marnic Mann was in that exact same situation, but instead of on the ground, she was against the cage. She could have turned her head, and they would have stopped and she wouldn't have gotten out. It wouldn't have been a big deal. But she didn't. She didn't, did she? She grabbed the headlock. She closed the distance. She did everything she could to not get finished. And if you could take that grit, that toughness, that tenacity, and put it into somebody that's talented, you'd have a spectacular fighter. And I'm not dogging her for not being, I guess I am, for not being talented. But the reality is she's not very fast. She's not very strong. She didn't do anything. So she's not ready for the UFC. She just is not ready. It'd be one thing if she was just a little too small, but she's fast as shit, constantly moving forward, making fights ugly. She didn't do that. She got hit. She survived. And that was the end of the fight. And they wanted to talk about how good Souza looked and what Souza was doing. But it's easy to look good when you're working against the punching bag. Marnic Mann didn't do much. When she did decide to wrestle, she actually had some nice takedowns. When she did decide to do something, it looked pretty good. It was almost like she just gave up the first round. It took her a while to get going. I don't know what her deal was, but she was afraid to engage, didn't do much when she did engage, and just survived. But that's all we needed her to do. Let's see what Ketlen Souza looks like in her next fight. But it is always nice to see some of these fights go the distance. Ketlen Souza had 8 finishes. 8 finishes. But it is nice to see somebody go the distance and stay busy because now we know Ketlen Souza has some cardio, and that's something we should factor into her next fight. This was one of a handful of sketchy decisions. The first decision you could call sketchy. This decision you can call sketchy. The decision after this one you could call sketchy. There was a handful of very close decisions that could have gone either way. Personally, watching this fight, I thought Don'Tale Mayes won that first round because he sat down Caio Machado. Sat him down. And then I think Caio Machado won the next 2 rounds. I thought it was that simple. Because Caio Machado came out in the next 2 rounds. At no point was he rocked. At no point was he robbled. And I meant to say wobbled, but I said robbled. At no point did that happen. So then Caio Machado was just being busy, throwing strikes, dancing around, coming forward. And if anything, Don'Tale Mayes was the one backing up. He was the one turning his head. And there was a few times where it looked like Caio Machado was potentially going to knock out Don'Tale Mayes. Caio Machado has no power whatsoever, so that wasn't going to happen. But Don'Tale Mayes did not look good in this fight. Did not look good at all. I don't know why there were people out there with the narrative that Don'Tale Mayes was going to wrestle. I don't know why people have it in their head that he's going to wrestle. He's not a wrestler. He has one single fight where he had a handful of takedowns. That's it. He's not a wrestler. So this was a fight that he was supposed to dominate because he didn't get wrestled either. So you have Don'Tale Mayes, the big heavyweight that's got big power, and he rocked the guy in the first round, and then that was it. I don't know why he won the second and third round on the judges' scorecard because to me, it looked like Caio was a little busier. Caio was the one moving forward. Caio was the one landing the more meaningful strikes. And after Don'Tale Mayes sat him down in the first round, he was headhunting. I frankly thought this fight was a 29-28 for Caio Machado, but it was close enough to not call a robbery. I'm specifically not using the term robbery. Close fights are not robberies. They're just a close fight where you disagree with the decision. This is one of those. And it's unfortunate for Caio Machado because he's not terrible. Jacob was texting me, this guy is ass. ASS, ass. I don't think he's that bad. Honestly, I don't think Caio Machado is bad. I just think Caio Machado needs to work on a few things. Be a little less hittable. Be a little busier. A little more offense will help him out. Let me adjust my camera. It was a little too low. A little offense would help him out because if you stay busy, you move your head a little bit, you don't have to worry about those big shots coming your way. But at this point, I don't know what success he's going to have because he got sat down by Don'Tale Mayes and then still lost the next round. So I don't think Caio Machado is going to be able to do anything at heavyweight. He couldn't beat Mick Parkin, couldn't beat Don'Tale Mayes. Let's usher him out of here because who's he going to beat? Who's he going to beat? This was a sketchy decision. This decision I flat out disagreed with. This one, I'm not going to call it a robbery, but this is much closer to robbery than any of the other ones on this card. I thought Michal Figlak won this fight, especially after the last few months. You've heard me sitting in this chair ranting and raving that they call this the Ultimate Kickboxing Championships because wrestling doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter if you get a takedown. Nobody cares. Nobody cares if you get a takedown. And all of a sudden they cared in this fight because Michal Figlak clearly won the striking exchanges. Pretty much all of them. He pretty much won every single striking exchange. He was the one moving forward. He was the one landing more meaningful strikes. He was the one with the better defense. He was the better fighter everywhere. And yes, he was taken down. He also defended a whole bunch of takedowns. And when he was taken down, what happened? Literally nothing. No damage was done on the ground. There was no control on the ground, no submission. Nothing meaningful happened on the ground. And when they were on the feet, Michal Figlak won those exchanges. So explain to me how Isaac Dulgarian can lose, how he can lose, and Michal Figlak can also lose. How can both of those people lose? You either think wrestling matters or you don't think wrestling matters. The inconsistencies are what's brutal here. I think Michal Figlak won this fight whether you give a shit about wrestling or not. Because the takedowns didn't mean anything. Austin Hubbard had a handful of takedowns. They meant almost nothing. And Michal Figlak defended far more takedowns than he gave up. And when they were on the feet, he was the one landing meaningful shots. He was the one moving forward. He was the one doing damage. He was the one doing stuff. I think Michal Figlak won this fight. And I think Austin Hubbard should be thankful that he got this sweet gift. And he finally got a nice, solid, actual UFC win in a couple of years. So Michal Figlak, I think he won this fight. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Obviously, I had a bet on him. But bet or no bet, I think he won this fight. And then at a certain point, you're just too old for this sport. And it sucks because Rani Yahya is a little too old for this sport. He had some success early and then quickly faded and then got beat up and then got finished. Because Victor Henry's not that good. Victor Henry's not like this big dog finisher that you have to worry about because Victor Henry's got incredible footwork, insane power. That's not who Victor Henry is. But he was able to survive an early burst with a takedown attempt, a couple of early grappling exchanges, and then from that point forward, he was just a little younger, a little fresher, a little faster, and obviously he had the better striking. Of course he had the better striking. Rani Yahya was never a good striker. He's an unorthodox striker who'll throw things, try to make something happen, but he's never the better striker in a matchup. He's a grappler. The problem is, as you start to age out of this sport, the late 30s, early 40s, as you start to age out of this sport, you slow down a little bit, your chin starts to go a little bit, your cardio starts to go, and all three of those things matter very, very much. Rani Yahya had an early burst, but it was a little slow. Then his cardio started to go, and I wouldn't say his chin gave out. He just was sort of beat to a pulp at the end there, and then that was the end of it. But, you know, the takeaway is, sorry, Rani, you've aged out. And that is not a blemish on your career. It says nothing about who you were as a fighter. It says nothing about what you've accomplished as a fighter. It just says that Father Time is here and you're a little too old for this sport. And the takeaway for Victor Henry is good for him. He did what he was supposed to do. He stayed on the outside as much as he could. He engaged in the striking when he should engage with the striking. Didn't overcommit to anything. Didn't end up in some weird grappling scrambles when he shouldn't have been. He fought a smart fight. He did all the right things and he beat the guy. That's all you can do is be proud of him. He was the other leg of the safety parlay. And what I loved about this fight is I picked Victor Henry to win since the jump, since 2 weeks ago. But 2 weeks ago, he was minus 500. And I was like, that's crazy. And obviously, he ended up looking minus 500. But 2 weeks ago, not knowing the outcome of the fight, that was crazy to me. That was just too wide. We had seen Victor Henry lose to an old grappler before. But then as the week went on, I was using our tools, my line movement tracker. I was watching Victor Henry's line slowly tighten until he got down to like minus 300 or something like that. And then I was like, this is a bettable fight. Victor Henry at only 3-1 against a 4-year-old, that makes sense. A 40-year-old? A 5-1 fight, it's a little different. 3-1, the value's there. And then I jumped on it and it made it happen. And thank you, Victor Henry, for that payout. And Rani Yahya, maybe he'll be lucky enough to get a matchup against another. Give him Clay Guida, right? Give him another old guy. Let the two old guys go at it, and then one of them can retire happy. Do that. I did it for you. There you go, Joe Silva. Do Rani Yahya and Clay Guida next. And then again, you're just too damn old for this sport. Tim Means is 40 years old, and he's just too old. Because what are the three things I said go first? Your speed, your chin, and your cardio. And if you're going to fight the way Tim Mean fights, you at least need your chin. You at least need, he was never a particularly fast guy, so fine, but you at least need your chin. If you're going to try to fight like a dog and you're going to try to wrestle and come forward and close the distance, you need your chin because you're going to eat some shots on the way in. And that's what happened. He ate this beautiful uppercut, slept him. Tim Means has to be done at 40. And this is another fight where a lot of people were betting on Tim Means. A lot of people were betting on him. And I get it. But I think what people need to do a better job of, and me included in this, is look at the fighters more recently. Look at them without the, I know this guy is tough goggles. This is going to happen next week at UFC 301 with Anthony Smith. People are going to say, I know this guy is tough. And he is tough. But he was more tough than he is now. He's old now. He's beat up now. He's been through too many wars. He's been cracked too many times. He's taken too much damage. And that is the Tim Means situation. Tim Means is too old. He's been hit too hard, too many times. He's taken too much damage. And then he went in there with a killer that has the striking prowess that Uros Medic does. He took it on the chin, and that was the end of that. So Uros Medic, good for him. Great win. 10 wins, 10-2 overall. 10 wins, 10 stoppages. Good for him. Tim Means, is he done? I mean, he's 40, so I don't know if he's done, but this is what the UFC is going to do. They're going to give him a couple of young killers, probably some contender series guys. They're going to break him, and then he's going to retire, and he's going to be all beat to shit coming off 12 losses in a row. That's what the UFC is going to do. What they should do is be like, okay, here, fight another old guy. We'll have some fun fights, some nostalgia-style fights, and one of you can at least go out the right way instead of me just feeding you to prospects and watching you just get beat down. So unfortunately for Tim Means, he's probably going to be fed to a couple of prospects, and that's just sort of the end of that. He came out, he had a wrestle game plan. That was the right game plan in this matchup. Just too old, too slow, and not as good of a wrestler as he needed to be to not eat these uppercuts and get finished. I'm just going to, that's all I can say here. I should just move on. I should just go and move on. Because JSP's a bum. I just can't imagine, what is Jonathan Pearce training in the gym? What is he training? I have never seen somebody at such a high level be so damn sloppy. How do you have no control? How do you have no control? How did you get this far in your MMA career and you do not have the ability to hold somebody down or keep them in a position? Or how do you not have the ability to make adjustments? I'm pretty sure David Onama reversed the position 15 times. That's not even an exaggeration. It quite literally might be 10 to 15 times. 10 to 15 times that Jonathan Pearce had David Onama on the ground, had his back, had him in some trouble, and then David Onama just goes, just turns around real fast, and now Jonathan Pearce is like, oh my God, I'm on my back. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. It's insane. It's insane to see that. It is insane. You don't see that? You don't see that with any Agamedovs. There's no full beard, no mustache guys floating around that can't hold somebody down. It's insane. It's insane. It drives me nuts. People are going to lose. People are going to lose. There's only one best fighter on the planet in each weight class, and even then, these belts change hands so often that nobody is truly the best. So people are going to lose. And if Jonathan Pearce lost because he couldn't get takedowns and David Onama's hips were just too good and he lit him up and he won the striking, knocked him out, or just won the decision that way, defending takedowns, lighting him up, no problem. It's going to happen. It eventually will happen. But to lose because you actually got takedowns and we're winning grappling exchanges and then we're just getting reversed on a whim because you don't know how to keep somebody in a position is crazy to me. His gym needs to just run shark drills. Just run shark drills. But instead of takedowns, this son of a bitch needs to be on top. Start him on top because he can get to the ground. He just can't keep people there. Start him on top, grease up the slipperiest bastard in your gym, and make Jonathan Pearce hold him down. And do that 10,000 hours. And eventually, he might know how to hold somebody down. I'm done railroading him and his inability to hold people down. Let's praise David Onama. David Onama looked great. He made a couple of poor decisions, right? There was a few times where he started to grapple. He initiated a couple of grappling exchanges. Then it didn't go well for him. And then thankfully, he just spun around and it worked out. But outside of a couple of those poor decisions, outside of looking for a guillotine, outside of that stuff, David Onama looked good. He was composed. He let his hands go. He is a dog. He is a dog. He was exhausted towards the end of that fight. Absolutely exhausted. And he kept coming forward. He kept doing stuff. He kept trying to make something happen. So congratulations to David Onama. I picked against him. I bet against him. I was positive Jonathan Pearce was going to win this fight because of the wrestling. And I expected David Onama to be tough and have a little bit of dog in him. I did not expect him to reverse every single grappling exchange and then still push the pace, still move forward. So David Onama, good for you. Congratulations. You deserve everything you got. And Jonathan Pearce, you have 2 losses in a row because you make trash decisions in fights. Honestly, I hope you lose your 3rd. And then, damn, Austin Lane got put out. And I think most of us expected that, right? He was just knocked out in his last fight. He's fighting a professional kickboxer in this fight. So we're like, okay, he's going to get knocked out. I thought that's what was going to happen. I think you all thought that was going to happen. But thank God Denise got up because he got taken down and he was pretty useless. Pretty useless. Pretty useless. That was a Curb Your Enthusiasm reference. If you don't watch that show, you should. And if you do watch that show, let me know in the comments what you thought about the finale because I thought that was literally the perfect series finale, especially if you watch Seinfeld and understand how that ended. This was quite literally the perfect finale. Anyway, back to the fights. Jhonata Denise didn't have much to offer on the ground. He was able to get back up, but thank God, because he got taken down and he was basically useless. He was basically worthless down there. He obviously has the power, good, clean striking. We didn't know what his takedown defense was going to look like. We hadn't seen a ton of it, and now we know. It's not great. It's not awful. He did defend some Austin Lane takedowns, but he was also taken down. And then it got to the ground. It was like, uh-oh, he's probably not getting back up. But he did do what he was supposed to do. He knocked out Austin Lane. The UFC knew what they were doing with this matchup. Their whole thing was, let's go ahead and build up some heavyweights. This division is weak. Let's build up some heavyweights. This is a former kickboxer. We love the former kickboxers. Let's make something happen. They're going to slow roll him. I do not imagine Jhonata Denise is going to get a really tough matchup next. I think he's going to be another situation like this. Honestly, here you go. They're going to give him Caio Machado. Let's give him a guy that we know can be chinned a little bit and doesn't have any offensive power. That's what they're going to do. They're going to give him or somebody in that category because they want to build him up, but they don't want him to be in a situation where he's going to get taken down and held down or knocked out, and then there goes all the fizzle because they are looking to put some new blood in the heavyweight division. But Jhonata Denise did exactly what he was supposed to do. Survived a little bit of trouble, landed that big punch, and got it done. And then we had the Karine Ariane Lipski fight. This was great. For a couple of reasons. The most important thing, the thing that I love most here is now we know Karine Silva has cardio. This was her first ever decision. She had 17 fights with 17 stoppage wins. 17 wins with 17 stoppages coming into this fight. And the round line was 1.5. A 1.5 round line. And thank God it was, because if it was 2.5, I probably would have bet the under. But it was 1.5, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So I left it alone. So that ended up working out. But I am so glad this did go the distance because we got to see what Karine Silva looks like. Is she going to death gas if she doesn't get an early finish? Does she just fall off a cliff after the first round? And the answer to all that is no. Not only did she set an incredible pace, she had success later in the fight as well. And of course she slowed down, but she did a lot. She was busy. She probably attempted 30 submissions in this fight, and that's not an exaggeration. She had the takedown. She had the control. All of a sudden, she's going from guillotine to side control to full mount to north-south. She was just everywhere doing everything, making stuff happen, and still had cardio. Wasn't gassing. Looked somewhat fresh, or at least an appropriate amount of tired for the third round. So this is a woman who had never seen a third round. All of a sudden, in the third round, continue to move forward, continue to make stuff happen. That is spectacular. I love to see that. Karine Silva is absolutely the real deal. I got her at plus money. I'm glad I did. People bet her at like minus 150. She still was worth that price point. The affordable days of Karine Silva are probably behind us. I don't know what her next matchup is going to be, but the amount of wins she has, the amount of stoppages she has, this is her 4th or 5th win in the UFC. There's no way we're going to get a reasonable price on her in her next matchup, but let's hope we do, because I think she is the real deal. Striking looked pretty good. Takedowns looked good. The control on the ground was good too. She just doesn't settle. She's constantly chasing a submission. And Ariane Lipski didn't look that bad either. She had a little bit of success. She didn't look that bad. She didn't get submitted. That's her big claim to fame, never been submitted. But she had some good cardio. She had her own solid exchanges. She moved forward as well. And you can see the improvements that she's making. Frankly, I don't think this loss takes anything away from her. I think she just lost to a top 5 fighter in this division. And Karine Silva's not ranked yet, but name 10 fighters better than her. She should absolutely be in the top 10. You're not going to name 10 fighters better than Karine Silva right now in this division. And then we had the co-main event. Bogdan Guskov got it done. But I want to talk about Ryan Spann's game plan, because I appreciate that game plan. He came out wrestle heavy. And that has to be a tricky thing to do for your ego, because Ryan Spann is a massive 6'5" human being who also hits like a freight train. And I could see if he did not have the appropriate coaches and didn't have the right people around him, I could see them being like, you're going to knock this guy out. This guy, you're going to knock him out. He sucks. And then going into that fight thinking he's going to knock him out. But instead, he came forward and he looked to wrestle. He had mixed success there. He won the first round. Ryan Spann objectively won the first round on all 3 judges' scorecards. Every single judge in this fight scored that first round for Ryan Spann. And then thankfully, after the 2-minute and 30-second mark, he was then finished. And I say thankfully, I didn't care who won this fight. I just needed it to go over 1.5. Because I bet on over 1.5 and I got it at plus 2 something. And in my mind, it was going to be close. It was a dicey line, but I did feel like this could be a fight that goes a little longer. Because I did not think Ryan Spann was going to come out with a wrestle-heavy game plan. What I did think would happen, though, is that Bogdan would not have the success that he thought he would have early. Then there'd be a lot of cage control, some pitter-pattering, and a little bit of that. Obviously, that's not what happened, though. So credit to both of these gentlemen. Credit to Ryan Spann and his coaches for having a solid game plan. It did not work out. Go back to what I said before. You're not going to win every fight. There's always going to be somebody better, especially in this. This is not boxing where you go 38-0, 40-0 before you finally lose a fight. This is a fist fight. You can lose 200 different ways inside that octagon. So congratulations to Ryan Spann for being surrounded by solid coaches and having a solid game plan. It did not work out, but that just is what it is. And then congratulations to Bogdan Guskov for getting a win over such a highly ranked opponent and overcoming adversity. He lost that first round and didn't quit on himself. Look at the cut above his eye. Didn't care, moved forward, landed the shots he needed to land, and ultimately got the win. And I believe a win bonus as well. He got a performance of the night bonus for this win, as he should have. A come-from-behind knockout victory in a co-main event against the highest-ranked opponent that he has ever fought. Congratulations to Bogdan Guskov, and I'm sure we'll see Ryan Spann again, and I'm sure he'll have plenty more wins before he retires. And then we had the main event of the evening. Matheus Nicolau has no chin whatsoever. No, it's just gone. It's just gone. And I said for 2 weeks that this main event on paper is not good. It's not good in name recognition. Up until this fight, Alex Perez hadn't won in like 4 years. Matheus Nicolau was just unconscious on a canvas. Making that the main event was absurd to me. And it still is absurd to me. But I also said for the last 2 weeks that this fight would deliver. I knew this fight would deliver because Alex Perez is not a coward. Alex Perez moves forward. Alex Perez has nice scramble skills. Alex Perez is a dog. We saw it in the Muhammad Mokaev fight. We've seen it in previous fights as well. And we knew that Matheus Nicolau was a fantastic striker with fantastic jiu-jitsu. I thought Nicolau was going to win this fight because I thought he was just the better fighter, the more technical striker. He has the wrestling. He has the jiu-jitsu. But what did I say? If you go watch my best bets video, the betting breakdown video, I had Alex Perez listed as one of the better underdogs on this card. And the whole narrative there was that we just watched Matheus Nicolau get knocked out. And after somebody gets knocked out like that, you just don't know what they're going to look like, what they're going to fight like. And we know that Alex Perez is a dog who's going to come forward no matter what. I did not think Alex Perez was going to knock Matheus Nicolau out. Certainly not in the second round. I did not think that would happen. What I did think would probably happen is if Alex Perez won, he would just be the one pressuring forward, threatening, defending takedowns, and Matheus would be a step behind looking pathetic because he doesn't want to engage because he's worried about his own chin. But again, that's not what happened. Alex Perez moved forward, won the striking exchanges, or at least made them dirty and ugly, and then eventually landed that combination and absolutely slept. This is Matheus Nicolau. His head bouncing off of his own knee just absolutely slept. And it's a shame because he is such a talented guy. But I don't know what you can do. If you are at this weight class and you're getting knocked out like this, I don't know what the rest of your career looks like. I don't know what it looks like. These are not powerful people. And you're getting knocked out like this at this weight class. I don't know what the rest of his career looks like. And it's so unfortunate because he's so talented. And good for Alex Perez. Good for Alex Perez. I couldn't imagine 4 years, 3 years, whatever it is, of no success, barely any fights, losing as many in a row as he did, and then still showing up on short notice, moving forward, staying in his face, and making something happen. So congratulations to Alex Perez. Very unfortunate run for Matheus Nicolau. He took a full year off after the last knockout. I don't know how much longer he's going to take off here. It is really tough. And you feel for some of these guys. This is not football, basketball, baseball, where you have a good career, you make a fortune, and then you can retire even if your skills start to slow down. You play a little bit more and you retire. This is not that sport. Matheus Nicolau has not made enough money to retire from MMA. He just hasn't. So he has to continue to fight, even though his chin isn't necessarily there, even though his chin isn't necessarily going to allow him to continue to fight. And these situations are always unfortunate, especially somebody as talented as he is. But Alex Perez is a dog. He reminded us he's a dog, and he is the 8th underdog this year to win in a main event in 2024. So congratulations to them, guys. Become a premium member. It's only $10 for an entire month. $10 for an entire month. UFC 301 is next week. You're going to get 4 events for $10. You're going to get picks, bets, tools, round lines, insight, everything you could ever want or need. One of those tools is the line movement tracker. It's going to give you the opening odds, the current odds, the win probability, and line movement for every fighter on every card. I used this to bet on Victor Henry. I said, no thanks to that. The Drake meme. The Drake meme is me looking at Victor Henry at minus 500 going, nah. And then minus 3 whatever. I don't think, I forget, how does it end? Just like a smile? Either way, line movement tracker. WeWantPicks.com, click become a member. At the top, it is only $10. You're also going to get the detailed data, metrics, and analytics. I use this when I absolutely have been slamming my prize picks entries. It's so easy to look at this and say, oh, this dude gets 5 takedowns per fight and his takedown line is 2. No problem. Or the opposite. Oh, For some reason, they have Michal Figlak at 1.5 takedowns. Turns out he's never gotten 2 takedowns before. Yeah, we're going to do the under. All of that data right here, ready to go, just a click away at WeWantPicks.com. You're also going to get the DraftKings Optimizer, which is preloaded with the best ownership projections in the game. And you're going to get more than just my picks and bets, more than just Jacob's picks and bets. We have Artem giving you his picks and bets. We have Running Mouth giving you theirs. And then we have Pick GPT. I used to call it Pick Doctor. Pick Doctor is a human being. Pick GPT is the tool. So we're just leaning into the tool here so that there's no confusion. The tool, Pick GPT, is an artificial intelligence picking fights based solely off of historical data. And that's the picks category. Then what we're doing is we're analyzing the picks. We're tracking all the picks. We're betting each pick individually. We're looking at the data. We're coming up with systems, betting systems around that data. We have 2 different betting systems. Both of them are profitable, not the longest term, right? This is experimental. We've been doing it for just a few events or a couple of months. All of that data is there for you, tracked, ready to go, that you can check it all out. Everything I mentioned, all the things I didn't mention, only $10 a month. WeWantPicks.com. Click become a member at the top.